Hello and welcome to the National Extension College and the University of Law webinar. We're going to give it a couple of minutes just as more people join. So do say hello in the chat box, welcome, and then we'll do the full introductions in a couple of minutes' time. Hello to everybody. I think a few more people are joining us. Do say hello in the chat if you can see the chat to the right-hand side. We'll just wait a couple of more minutes for people to join. But lovely to hear from you and where you're from. Perhaps if you're studying, just say something so we know you're out there. That would be really nice. Hello, well, we've had one hi, so welcome, Wharton. So we're going to start off now. So welcome to the National Extension College and to the University of Law. I'm Esther Chesterman. I'm CEO of National Extension College. And if you don't know us, we're an online distance learning college, and we deliver GCSEs, A-levels, and professional skills qualifications. And I'm delighted to welcome Jamie and HJ from the student recruitment team from the University of Law. And we've got a full packed 30 to 40 minutes of presentation from Jamie and HJ. And then at the end, there'll be time for questions. I'm sure you'll have lots. So if you do have questions, please type them in the Q&A box at the side. Some of you are just practicing that by saying hello. So welcome. So type your questions there, and then at the end we'll have a live Q&A. We'll either go back to some of the questions that have been posted, or you can ask questions at that point. So I'm going to hand over now, move myself away from the screen even, and hand over to Jamie and HJ.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the warm introduction, Esther, and for all of you today for giving up an hour of your time as well. Hopefully this will be a really interesting talk for you to find out a little bit about the range of careers within the sector, a little bit more about exactly what's involved and some of the routes to get there as well. We'll want this to be as interactive as possible. So great to see so many of you saying hello, hi. And we will be sort of asking questions, doing little quizzes as we go to make it as interesting as possible. So just briefly, a little bit about the University of Law before we jump into the session. If you've not heard of us before, we are one of the largest legal education providers within the UK, and we have degrees in both law, but also related subjects such as politics, criminology, policing, as well as the business side of things as well. In terms of who we are and what we're proud of, so myself and HJ both work at the online campus, so I'm very much used to working virtually, and many of our students study virtually as well. In fact, the online campus is the largest of all of our campuses that are dotted across England. As you can see on the map, we're located in both the north, the Midlands, and the south of England. And last year, we voted #1 NSA survey, which taken by universities and for student satisfaction in England, which we're really, really pleased about. In terms of our style of teaching, it's really quite different to a lot of the other universities in that the vast majority of our staff, over 90% of our tutors, have been or are currently practicing as solicitors and barristers. So not only are they there teaching you the to know in terms of the black letter law, but also they're in their experiences. However, today isn't just us talking to you about ULaw. If you do have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A box. But we're going to get started with the session, and hopefully you'll find it quite useful. So it'd be really good to talk about the different careers within the legal sector. So obviously the term lawyer is quite popular, but actually what does a lawyer mean, and what exactly do lawyers do? Well, in this bit of a huge infographic. It's a lot to take in at first, but I'll break it down a little bit. So chances are, at the moment, you're watching this, and you may be, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse or not, but if you look in the top left corner, we've got the start. It may be that you're currently pre-GCSEs and A-levels, or you may be retaking some of these at the moment. Once you've got those qualifications or equivalents, it may be that you can then go on and do either a law degree, such as an LLB, a qualifying law degree, or it may be that you do something completely different, I don't know, a degree in history or sciences, whatever it may be. Or there are legal apprenticeships available as well. So you can actually go straight from your A-levels and do the apprenticeship route, which usually takes around 5.5 to 6 years, and you're in essence earning whilst you are learning, which is a really good way of doing things. So, as I say, you do a 3 or 4 year law degree with us or any of the other universities, or you can go and study something different and then do a conversion course. That usually takes around about 12 months in length and is an opportunity for you to learn everything you'd like about history or chemistry or whatever it is, and then have that 1 year and all the other that you need to go on and qualify as a lawyer. Now, this is where the path splits. And I'm not going to steal HJ's thunder because she's going to be talking a little bit about the differences between barristers, solicitors, and what they do. But in order to get there, the routes tend to be post-qualification with a degree or an apprenticeship, where you'll normally get a degree as part of that apprenticeship. Once you've done your 3 or 4 years and you graduate from university, for these routes, there are then additional vocational qualifications to take. And what you'll find in this session, and we'll try and demystify it as much as possible, there are lots of acronyms in the legal world. A couple to start with. One is the BPC, or the Bar Practice Course, and the other is Solicitors Qualifying Exams. Now, these are the two different ways and routes to go on and become either a barrister or a solicitor. Now, the BPC at different institutes has slightly different acronyms, but in essence, it's a 1 year, quite vocational period of training that you have to undertake in order to be called to the bar. Once you then apply to be called to the bar, you'll then want to apply for something called pupillage. Now, pupillage in essence is a 1 year training to become a barrister. So you will be working in the courts, and usually it's 2 6-month different sessions where you're working and doing lots of shadowing and learning all of the skills you need to go on and become a barrister. And this is quite a competitive process, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later on. Now, on the solicitor side of things, the route has been changed quite considerably as of this September, and you will then go on and do something called the Solicitors Qualifying Exams, which, I'll keep it very brief, consists of different examinations that will be testing your knowledge around sort of law, black letter law, and also some exams around some of the skills such as meeting clients, your oral skills, legal drafting, etc. You then go on to work and apply for something called qualifying work experience, which is a period of around 2 years and again can be split up quite flexibly between doing the SQE. You can then call yourself a newly qualified solicitor, and away you go. And we'll talk a little bit about what those terms mean later on. But for now, I'm going to pass over to my colleague HJ, who's going to take you through a nice little activity to find out which of the two professions you may be more interested in.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jamie. So what we're going to do to start with, I've seen a few of you in the chat box already, which is really nice to see you. What we're going to do is on the next slide, we've got a few pictures. And what I'd like you to do is see if you can guess what areas of law each picture represents. So we'll go through them picture by picture. I'd like you to pop into the chat box. This first one is a surgeon, someone doing some surgery. Can anyone guess what area of law do you think that this might be representing? There's no wrong answers. I just want to see what kind of knowledge you guys already have. So if you think of an answer, stick it in the chat box. No wrong answers. Medical, compliance, malpractice. Oh, some really, really good answers there. Brilliant. So it looks like you all kind of know what you're talking about. Yes, so this first area of law is clinical negligence. So it does represent, like Linda said, it's to do with medical things. So the second picture, it's a marriage certificate that's being chopped up. Probably not the happiest picture there. Wharton says family. Yep, brilliant. So that picture is family law. Some people at this point, they guess divorce law, which is not wrong because divorce comes under family law. And now this third one, we've got a picture of, it's a building that's for sale. I feel like this one should be quite obvious, but we'll see if you guys know the answer to this one. Brilliant, Linda. Yep, conveyancing, property or conveyancing. That's what that picture represents. And then this one, we've got someone who's signing something. I don't want to say what they're signing because I feel like that might give it away a bit. But what could somebody be signing that could be an area of law? Brilliant. Yeah, it's contract law. So that they are, I believe, signing a contract there. And finally, this one should be really straightforward. I would expect everyone to get this one right. So this final one, it's someone in handcuffs. I'm sure we all know what area of law this one is representing. Yeah, that's right. It's criminal law. So here we've got a few different areas of law. I'm really pleased that you're all absolutely on it. You know the answers already. So moving on to the next slide. This one I think should be a bit trickier for you all. So just from looking at this picture, can you tell me what area of law this picture represents? I'll be surprised if someone gets this, even though you've all done so well so far. See if you guys know the answer to this one or any guess. There's not a wrong answer for this one. Oh, everyone really knew the previous ones. Shall I just give you the answer? Shall I just give? Okay, so the answer for this one is obviously, well, not so obvious. Oh, Naomi's guessed ethics. Hey, that's a really good guess. Almost, but not quite. So this one is, it represents intellectual property or copyright law. So I don't know if any of you know who this monkey is, but this monkey, so basically the story behind it, there was a photographer who was called David Slater, and he was taking some photos, and his equipment was taken by this monkey who used his camera to take a selfie. So it's actually the monkey who's taken this picture himself. And Wikimedia used that image, and then they refused to take it down even when Slater requested them to, because they argued that the monkey had actually taken the photo itself, and therefore the monkey owned the copyright, so not Slater. So Slater could not profit from the image on that basis. So some of the legal arguments here were that, well, is a monkey a person? So can a monkey actually possess a copyright and profit? Slater could counter-argue that the monkey used his camera to take the photo, so therefore he created the context for the photo to be taken, so has some stake in the ownership. So Slater originally won this argument in that it was his work and his setup, but then Peter took him back to court because Peter said that this photo was actually the property of the monkey. So eventually, a few years later, the case was settled out of court, and David Slater did agree to donate 25% of his earnings from this photo to charities for monkeys. So I guess, you know, a win for everyone all round, I think, especially the monkeys. So moving on to the next slide, we're going to have a look at what do lawyers study. So if you were to study the LLB with us, there are a few key areas of law that you would be studying. So you all already have a really great knowledge of different areas of law as shown by the previous activity. So just to give you an idea of some of the modules that you could expect to study. So this first one is tort law. So that includes things like compensation, so where somebody is liable for the consequences of their actions. The next one is contract law, as you all knew. That includes all different kinds of contracts. It doesn't have to be signed ones, but a conversation can be a contract if you have a verbal agreement with someone. The next one is real estate, so selling houses. Some of these laws are hundreds of years old. You know, they've been created a really long time ago, so really interesting to look at some of the historical context in law as well. And this picture, you might be a bit surprised to see this one. So it's EU law. So even though we're not part of the EU anymore, the EU is still a really important legal system, and it's regulated a lot of our laws. So it's still really important to learn about EU law. The next one here, that piggy bank, is equities and trusts. Then this picture with lots of people is public law, so an interaction between people and the state, so the government. Those handcuffs there are criminal law. So those are some of the essential areas of law that you would be studying on the LLB. They're just lighting up there. And then moving on to the next slide, you can study law with different subjects. As part of the LLB, you can choose different modules for different areas of law that you're more interested in. So there's some pictures here like human rights law, family law, copyright law, and there's loads of different options there for you to be able to choose modules. Oh, a question here from Tom. Is there a module for more ethically based decisions in the LLB?
Yeah, it's quite a good question, that one, actually. What you will find that within your training as a lawyer during any studies at any university is ethics will come into it, and usually it's a separate module. And actually at the latter stages, if you are going to go on and practice it's actually a compulsory module. Common law and ethics is it's commonly known as, and it's obviously a big part of ensuring that our lawyers are equipped to go on and make good, honest choices and advice to their clients and have that integrity as well. So yeah, really good question, Tom.
Brilliant. So moving on to the next activity, what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you some statements. Some of them will be in purple and some of them will be in blue. What I'd like you to do is have a read through them and decide which of the purple ones you agree with and which of the blue ones you agree with. And then would like you to add them all up. We're going to have 2 slides with statements on. So this should give you a bit of an idea as to what area of law might suit you the best in terms of what routes you can take. So having a look at these statements, if you see any of the purple ones that you agree with, that you think, yep, that sounds good, then you can write that down. If you see any of the blue ones that you agree with, you can write that down. There isn't a right or a wrong answer here. So if you see a few of the different ones that you agree with, write them all down, and that's absolutely fine. What we'll do at the end is we'll add them all up. So have a read through these ones, and then in a moment we'll move on to the next slide, which has some more statements as well, and we'll add them all up at the end. So second slide here, a few different options. So if you like traveling, or if you'd rather be in the office, whatever you think sounds best. Again, if it's a purple one that you agree with, pop down purple, or a blue one, pop down a blue, and then we'll add them all up. So I'll just give you a few more moments to have a read through these and decide which ones you agree with. So if you identified that you agreed with some more blue statements, it might mean that you would be better suited to looking at pursuing a career as a solicitor. If you agreed with more of the purple ones, it might be that looking into becoming a barrister could be the right choice for you. So I don't know if you want to put in the chat box which ones you agreed with. So if you had more blue ones or more purple ones, pop it in the chat box. We can have a look and see. And then what we'll do is we'll explain a bit more about what a solicitor does and what a barrister does, so you can understand a bit more about those roles.
And I also did it as well and got more purple. So it'd be good to know if there's anyone else out there with more purple or more blue.
So Jamie, you're going to be a barrister in your next life.
Potentially.
Slightly more blue, so a few more solicitors. Oh, that's a really good question, Tom. Are barristers always self-employed? Well, I'll answer that in just a moment. I think you'll find out in the next slide. Oh, Tom, you had equal barrister or solicitor. Well, that's great. I think that's absolutely fine. You know, you've got your options are open. So that's really exciting. So here we've got a solicitor and a barrister. So a solicitor, they are salaried employees. So they get paid a salary by their firm who they are employed by. And Tom, this should answer your question. So barristers are self-employed and they manage their own finances. There are a very, very small amount of barristers who may be employed by a firm, so working in-house, but the vast, vast majority of barristers are self-employed. So that's typically what we would say is that barristers self-employed, solicitors are employed. And then the next one. So solicitors are given a variety of tasks and jobs by their firm. And barristers like talking in public and presenting legal arguments. So essentially what happens is that a solicitor is given the tasks and jobs by their firm. The solicitor then instructs the barrister, who then represents their argument in court. So the solicitor kind of does the bits behind the scenes, and then the barrister is talking in public and presenting those arguments in court. Solicitors tend to work on a case from start to finish, whereas barristers will pick that up towards the end as it's all going to court, because they are the ones who are allowed to speak in court, they're the ones who are allowed to present. So they typically specialise in a certain area of law, whereas solicitors tend to be more general. I guess one way of thinking about it is if you're unwell, you would go to your GP initially for their general understanding of medicine. And if something more specialist was required, you would then go to a specialist. So it's almost like a barrister then would be a surgeon. So solicitor versus barrister, GP and surgeon, that's, I guess, an equivalent there. A solicitor enjoys being mostly office-based, so that's why there's the question about if you'd like to travel or not. And a barrister travels around the UK and works in different places, so they will attend court all around the UK to be in court there on behalf of their clients. Solicitors get to work with lots of people and clients, so they're working with a real variety of people throughout their working day, whereas barristers are in a smaller community. They're mostly in contact with other lawyers, so with other solicitors who they're working with, or other barristers who they know as well.
Okay, so in terms of the statistics of solicitors, barristers, it's older, the numbers are a bit higher, but roughly speaking, around about 150,000 solicitors practicing in the UK. So quite a big number. Now, barristers, as HJ has been talking a little bit about, are a lot more specialist in nature. And what you'll see is actually the numbers of those in the UK are much, much smaller as a result of that specialism. So quite often what we'll find is students, particularly those just starting out in their legal career or just starting to study law, will often think, I want to be a criminal barrister because I've been watching Suits or I've been watching another TV programme with a lawyer in, and that's the world of law that they've seen. And what we tend to find is the more law and how descending towards the solicitor pathway. So it's quite an interesting statistic there just to see how many lawyers there are in total. In terms of updated stats, I think it's now more around 175 and 17,000. So similar sort of ratios there. Now, in terms of where they work as solicitors, this pie chart nicely shows whereabouts they work. So 2/3, or certainly the majority of solicitors in the UK and in England and Wales work in what's called private practice. So typically they will work within something called a firm, and the vast majority of them are lawyers, or they go out to clients, whether that's private clients or it may be corporate clients and businesses, and they will be there advising them on how to help solve some of their issues. Now, just under 1/3 or 20% work in-house. So, for example, in-house would be a very large company that have their own team of lawyers. So, for example, in a past life, I used to work in the food industry, and within that industry, we had our own team of lawyers that represented just that food brand because they were a huge global multinational company and they had their own in-house lawyers. And it's a good way that if you want to work within the law or have a specific interest in a sector, that you can be really ingrained in that company and surrounded not just by your colleagues, that, you know, not all of your colleagues are lawyers, but you're immersed within that environment. And around 8% tend to work in the public sector. So that could be the CPS, for example, the Crown Prosecution Services, or there are also a small number of lawyers that actually work for the government and operate for the government, and sort of have those public style jobs and relations. So it's a really interesting and diverse field in terms of the opportunities out there. Now, in terms of barristers, isn't to let you know how competitive it is. Roughly for every students that apply for pupillage in the UK, which was that period of training, around about only one gets in first time typically. So it's very, very competitive. Whereas at University of Law, a couple of years ago, so from 2018 this now is, we checked in after our student left us, so not directly comparable, but if you don't get pupillage the first time, it's quite difficult to get it the second time. It was around about 58% of our students obtained pupillage, and that's really because how we operate and choose the students that come onto our programs is to really make sure that they are the people that have those skills to come across in the right manner and successfully become a barrister. So, in terms of a career in law, why may you want to become a lawyer? So this would be really a good chance if you pop in the comments, the Q&A box, some of the reasons you are here today to find out more about law, or why you think law and becoming a lawyer could be a good career for you. And feel free to say anything at all. I've delivered this presentation many times and heard all sorts of answers. So quite often, nothing will surprise me. And whilst we wait for some of the answers to come in, I delivered this recently to a sixth form students, and straight away it was an all boys school, and one lad just went straight in and said, "Money, money, nothing else, all about the money." And it's true that a career in law can be financially lucrative, but it will depend on which area of law you go in and practice in. Some of the other reasons, though, may be that it's a very challenging career. You're looking for something that really pushes you and is stimulating. Also, a very clear career path in terms of law. So you'll find that actually it's very structured in terms of the approach, quite traditional in that manner that you will come in as a trainee or a paralegal. You'll then be a newly qualified solicitor or a junior barrister on that side and work your way up to sort of partner level. So there's a very clear structure and lots of opportunities to progress. Also, depending on what kind of lawyer you are, there may be opportunities to travel, both within the UK, and if you're sort of one of these internationally, or also get to meet lots and lots of different people from lots of, there's a lot of different things happening there. Fantastic. And in terms of, I'm not too sure why that popped up. In terms of some of the roles and tasks that lawyers do on a day-to-day basis, it really is quite diverse, and you'll find even in some of your current studies or future studies, some of these things will come in quite helpful. So, for example, things like negotiating and asking the right kind of questions. Usually, the client will come to you, and it may be that they're in a moment of need, if it's private client, or maybe looking for some advice. They'll normally come along with a narrative. Oh, he said this, she said this, and then this happened, and then we did this. Well, your job at the facts, exactly what happened, and all of the opinions and background noise, really reducing that down in terms of the right questions. It also may be that your client, particularly with criminal law, that you're going to have to negotiate. And so all the evidence is against you here. If you do this, it may be that you can get a lighter sentence, or if you can say this, whatever it may be, and using your negotiation skills. And they come in really quite key in all different areas. Another part is legal drafting documents, creation of legal documents for use, things like contracts, etc. Representation, so it may be that you're representing your client in court. And what we should do want to become a solicitor doesn't mean you can't go and work in the courts. And actually the lines between solicitors and barristers are slowly blurring. You can in fact do lots of court work as a solicitor should you choose to, and do something called advocacy. Essentially, it's our legal capacity representing your clients in the courts and putting across your arguments. Now, with quite a lot of jobs, and it's also true of lawyers, you'll do lots of conferences, meeting with clients, and finding out what their needs are. But also there's lots of legal research. Quite often, many of the cases that end in courts, there will have been something similar in the past, however many years. So often it will be doing legal research about what happened in the past, what legal arguments were used, are there certain loopholes, to find out exactly where you can win or may lose a particular case. Problem solving is for lawyers, and you'll find that, again, in lots of different jobs and roles in life, that actually problem solving is a really crucial skill to have. And finally, you will ultimately be advising clients on the law. The ability to put some quite complex ideas and ideologies into something that someone that you can tell, anyone just off the street, and put that into simple and plain English. So there's lots of different things, and this is a really challenging but interesting career pathway. So go back over now to Jay.
Brilliant, thanks Jamie. So the next activity that we're going to be doing is about witness statements. So whether you're a solicitor or a barrister, you do deal with witnesses as part of your representation. So can anyone think of a reason why someone might be a bad witness? So if someone is giving their evidence in court and you know, they're being questioned by both sides, what could make someone a bad witness? Can anyone think of any reasons? If you want to put those in the chat box and we can have a think about those. Kathy says they might be biased. That's a really good point. You could have someone who is biased for or against the defendant, for example, if they have a personal relationship. That's a really good point, Kathy. Thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look into some more reasons. Oh, yeah. So we're going to have a look at if you are good witnesses or not. So in that previous picture, we skipped past that quite quickly on purpose. So the previous picture that you saw with when we were talking about witness statements, can anyone remember what colour hair did the suspect have? Just have a guess. If you're not 100% sure, you can have a guess. There isn't, you know, going to be a wrong answer. Well, there might be a right answer, but I won't tell you off if you're wrong. Anyone remember what colour hair did the suspect have in that photo? Naomi says blonde. Does anyone else think blonde? Does anyone else think? Kathy has no idea. I assume that's a little not really sure emoji. That's brilliant. I didn't know we could do emojis on here. I like that. Yes, so okay, so we've got one guess for blonde and we've got one person who has no idea. So I think that's good good evidence. So next question, what colour was the carpet in the room? Can anyone remember that? If you can't remember the colour of the hair, can you remember the colour of the carpet that was in the room in that picture? I guess for blue, could be blue. I think that one's quite a tricky one, to be honest. I mean, I've done this presentation a few times and even I do second guess myself on what colour the carpet actually is. Okay, next question then. This one, you might not get this, you might get this. What colour jumper does the male have on? So the male in that picture, does anyone know what colour jumper he has on? Got a few. I'm seeing in the chat box that everyone is quite confused. I think everyone's really second guessing themselves and second guessing what they saw or if they can remember it properly. And how many people were in the room? So this one should be, I think, slightly easier. How many people were in the room? I guess for maybe 3 people in the room. Linda also thinks maybe 3. Okay, looks like a few of you are thinking 3. Okay, let's move on then. So we can see here the suspect. Those of you who said blonde, brilliant. Yeah, blonde hair, so well remembered. That should be a pretty easy one to remember. What colour was the carpet in the room? Now, interestingly in this one, I think this one is a bit mean because it's a bit of a trick question because you can't really see the carpet in the room. You can see the carpet of the room that they're walking into is a blue one, but the carpet itself in the actual room, we don't know. So it's okay if you're a witness and you can't remember something or you're not sure. It's okay to say that you can't remember or you don't know, rather than making up something. And what colour jumper did the male have on? Now, I saw a comment from Naomi who said, I thought he was wearing a suit jacket. Oh dear. Well, you were correct. He is wearing a suit jacket, but we don't know if he's got a jumper on because we can't really see. So yeah, bit of a trick question there, a bit of a misleading question. So really interesting that you knew the answer, but you were also second guessing your answer because of that misleading question. And finally, how many people were in the room? All of the answers that I saw said 3. Now, there are 3 people in the photo, but who was taking the photograph? And we can't see all of the room, so we don't actually know the answer. So you can see 3 people, but that might not be the right answer. So you can see here that even though you guys are so switched on, you know exactly what you're talking about, even then, you might not be the most reliable witnesses. And it's not because you've done anything wrong, it's just because you can forget, it's easy to misremember, you second guess yourself. That can happen really often. So moving on to the next slide. Turnbull in practice. This is the test that the police and the CPS use. So this is summed up by the advocate mnemonic. So it's used to prevent an unreliable witness from getting in front of a jury and possibly giving incorrect evidence. So the A in this is the amount of time that the witness observed the perpetrator for. So there's a huge difference between if you've been sitting next to someone for an hour versus if you just bumped into them somewhere for a moment. The D is again the distance. So if you sat next to someone or if you saw them from way across a field or something like that. The V, the level of visibility. So for example, if you were taking the rubbish out at night and it's dark and the street lamp's on, it's not always easy to tell the difference between different colours. So if you're looking at the coloured bins, you might not be able to tell the difference. Same as if you're trying to recognise the colour of someone's jacket, how can you really tell the difference between if it's black or blue if it's dark? So this is what they're looking for in terms of visibility. The O stands for any obstructions in the line of sight. So if you see someone arguing, but there's a lamppost that's partially blocking your view, is it possible that you're misreading the situation? Is it really that they're definitely arguing if you can't see the full situation? The K is, was the perpetrator known to the witness? So someone said earlier about a witness might be biased. So sometimes if a perpetrator is known to the witness, that could mean that the witness is going to be biased in the evidence that they're giving. The A stands for any specific reasons to remember the event. So most people, their memory of events or specific dates is not the best unless there's a specific reason for them to remember it. So for me, my birthday is on the 20th of December. So that to me, I would be able to remember things, you know, easily because that's an important day for me. To everyone else who probably doesn't really care about my birthday, I'm not really sure why, I think it's a really important day, but if you don't care about my birthday, you wouldn't remember what happens on the 20th of December because it's just a random date of all of the year. So that's what they're looking for, if there's any specific reason why a witness would remember the event. And the T stands for the time lapse since viewing the incident. So how long has it been since, if you're a witness, how long has it been since you saw this incident happen? If it happened last week, you'll probably have a bit of a fresher memory. If it happened a year ago, your memory might start to be a bit hazy and you might not be the most reliable witness. And finally, the E stands for any errors in the witness statement. So if there's any slip-ups, if there's any mistakes that have been made, if there's any conflicting information in the witness statement, that would mean that this witness is not a reliable one. So having said all of that, I hope that I haven't made you think that you wouldn't be reliable witnesses, but I hope it's made you think that sometimes even very intelligent people can make mistakes in their evidence. They can misremember things or get confused, and it can happen really easily. So it's really important that the police, the CPS, and solicitors and barristers are aware of all of this and that they're making sure that witnesses are reliable. So I'm going to hand back over to Jamie to talk about the life cycle of a crime.
Brilliant, thank you, HJ. Just a couple more slides from myself, and then we'll open up the floor to any questions at all. So in terms of the life cycle of a crime and criminal law specifically, it's not just lawyers that are involved in this process. There's also people such as criminologists and the police forces as well. And we thought we'd take a little bit of an example and show you where each of the different career pathways would interact in a particular crime. So if we take a crime here, let's call this person in the bottom left corner, let's call him Frank, and has been caught trying to steal a car. Now that then leads to arrest, which ends up in a court, and unfortunately he's found guilty and is sent to prison. He then later reforms and goes on to talk about his experiences and the criminal justice system as a whole. Now in terms of where would come into this, typically at the point after they've been arrested, it may be that a duty solicitor comes along and asks Frank some questions about exactly what happened, what was going on, and if there's anything they can do to represent them in the court. Now it may be that on both sides within the court there will be both a defence and a prosecution, usually on both sides and representing their clients, and they'll be advocating and arguing in that legal capacity to try and get the best situation for their client. Later on, there'll be sentencing. It may be that if they're on bail, there'll be bail hearings, and also the solicitors or barristers will be involved with. And it may be that once Frank's there, he wants to appeal the crime because he feels like he's been unjustly put behind bars. Now, in terms of the police force, initially they'll be looking at crime prevention because actually a lot of the work they will do, if they can prevent crimes in the first place, it's much cheaper and introducing those types of things. It starts very, very early in that out. They'll obviously be and arresting and charging and giving evidence in court as well. And later down the line, it may be that they are used in their support of the criminal justice reform if we do think there's particular issues or problems with whichever laws are in place as well. And then lastly, in terms of criminologists, and if you're thinking about studying criminology, there are different types of criminologists out there and things that are involved. Often they may be come in as expert witnesses to give evidence and their opinions during court, but a lot of what they focus on is actually looking at the laws, analysing them, and are they justified, are they correct, should they be changed, and lots around those different issues, and really someone caused the crime in the first place, and looking at different criminal justice reform. So it's a huge sector, not just law, but also criminal law. There's lots of different people and characters involved and careers around that too. Now, in terms of if you are outside of the UK and an international student, the routes for you to qualify will depend on whereabouts you're living in the world and also whereabouts you're looking to practice. Now at ULaw, we're a very diverse sort of institution. We've got students from all over the world. Now, typically, if you're looking to practice in England and Wales, the routes you will take is fairly similar. If, however, you're based in another country, it may be that there's a slightly different where what you will find is a lot of the ex-Commonwealth countries have laws that are not too dissimilar to sort of English and Welsh law, and the legal systems, often there's lots of overlap, and you may find that in certain countries degrees from UK universities are actually recognised, but it's always good to check with the relevant sort of barristers or authorities in the country you're based in. Also, one thing before I talk about this slide I forgot to touch on is the SILEX route to becoming a chartered legal executive. So it may be that actually what you can do after GCSEs is either a level 3 SILEX qualification and then work your way, or you can do a conversion degree. You can actually do a level 6 qualification and qualify as a chartered legal executive. So it's an alternative to a solicitor, as it were. So there's lots and lots of different routes and ways to go about it. Now, in terms of your next steps, whatever stage you're at education, do participate in anything extracurricular that you can do. Work experience always helps. So if you are someone that has currently has a career or a past career, all of those are transferable skills that you can always bring in to job applications, etc., and university, and also I'm sure applications to if you're not a. And with that, in terms of quite handy resources, I'd like to a little bit more. The only one caveat, if you're under 18, popular podcasts of all time, and it takes it's very much around criminal law and cases that happened in the past. It's a journalist that looks at all the evidence and really questioning if what happened was correct, and if there was a murder, whether or not actually they were guilty or not. But some really good other ones, LawPod UK, interested in the barrister side, and there's all sorts of different resources out there. So with that, just a big thank you for watching today, for taking the time out, and we'd like to open the floor up to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jamie and HJ. So yes, Q&A time now. I've learnt a lot, particularly how bad a witness I would be, but lots of really useful information as well, just as people are thinking of their questions. How long would it take to qualify as a chartered legal exec? Is there a sort of timescale around that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it really depends. So if you're sort of level 3 qualifications after GCSEs as an alternative, it will take a number of years. Whereas if you do it after graduating, the level 6, I believe, depending if you do it full or part-time, is between sort of ULaw tends not to offer the SILEX route, but we're more than happy to point you in the right direction of all the different routes that they offer as well. And it is fairly common actually as well. And it's safe to say that in practice, people have come from all different backgrounds. There's lots of people that have done law so there really is different options for anyone. But yeah, I can pop a link over for you, Esther, with all the different routes to share.
Thank you very much. Questions we're often asked: what sort of A levels would you advise people to study if they're looking to move on to a career in law? Are there any sort of obvious ones, or are there any that you'd avoid?
Yeah, so it's different A-level requirements. Now, for us, we appreciate that all A-levels have value, and actually, whether you've done all sciences or all humanities and arts, or a combination of both, we're absolutely happy with that. Other universities do vary. What I would say in terms of the most transferable, where it comes in particularly useful, things like where you have to write lots of essays, so English lit, so a different way will really help. So there isn't really ones to avoid. It's more just getting that combination and balance. And when you do come to apply to university, making sure in your personal statements it's clear why you'd like to go on and become a lawyer or study law.
Thank you. I studied a law degree and I did English literature, sociology and history. So quite a heavy essay writing A-levels. That was many years ago. And just a question. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I did a law degree. I mean, what would you say are the benefits of a law degree, even if you're not considering a career in law, if you're just interested in the law, but you're perhaps looking at other careers?
Yeah, really good question. I'll give you my take on this, and HJ can jump in as well afterwards. Something completely different. So it's fairly common in terms of the transferable skills. Being able to think laterally, having a good memory, because you'll find you'll have to have a good memory for dates, figures, and all these types of things. And also from develop careers in journalism, politics, and these types of fields where knowing how to come across and deal with people, communication skills, you will learn because you will be doing lots of, well, talking in essence, but also putting eyes to people. So there's lots of transferable skills that are really useful. I wonder, HJ, if you've got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I would say, I think one of the great things about studying a law degree is that you don't just get the academic side of, just learning the legal knowledge. You're also, as Jamie said, developing those skills, advocacy skills, debating skills, all really useful to be able to have. And, even just kind of confidence in public speaking is a huge asset to have when you're looking for employment further down the line. And yeah, there's so many people, I think, lots of our students, they do want to then go on to qualify as a solicitor or barrister, but lots of students will then go on to do something totally different. And I think that a law degree tends to be a really good foundation for so many different options.
Thank you.
Kathy in the public sector, lots of, there's so many, even within our team, I think there's quite a few people who studied law degrees, and, it's I think so many people who've done law degrees it makes you into a people person, I think, because you're good at chatting, and good at persuading as well.
And just on that, I mean, I used to really enjoy the moots, as they're called, the debates that you have when you're going through your degree. How does that work in an online environment?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. And we're quite proud of our online mooting team at the online campus. They actually they're in a worldwide competition last year and came 17th. So they prepared very well. And that works in a similar kind of forum to where we are now, where we, I think we were using Zoom to do the practices, and we get in external judges to judge their mooting skills. The physical constraints really aren't a barrier at all. They take it just as seriously. They'll normally be there suited and booted, and very much it's the delivery. And you'll find actually, I think 110%. So actually it prepares them quite well.
Good, thank you. I never won any competitions when I was mooting. I just used to enjoy it. So thank you both. So thank you to Jamie and HJ from the University of Law student recruitment team. For those of you who booked through Eventbrite, we will be sending a follow-up, and that'll be information from ourselves, the National Extension College. We've worked with the University of Law to create a really useful careers guide, which you can get from our website. We'll also be sending on some links to the University of Law events and up-and-coming events that you can join, and further information you'll be able to gain. We have just one last question from someone. Just as I'm winding up, Naomi has put a question in, so we'll just quickly do that one. It's a trickier one. Any takers on this one from Naomi?
Yeah, it really depends on which country. If you were going on and wanting to move to some like the Commonwealth, where it is very transferable, and there are others, if you I'm trying to think of a random example now, but there are others that will have completely different legal systems and it's less transferable. We have a lot of Canadian students as well with us, so we know a lot come over, study, and then they can take it.
But I think perhaps that's a question if Naomi wants to follow up with one of your career guides. Sorry, Jamie, just lost you for a second there. Perhaps, Naomi, when we send you the links, it'd be a question that you can follow up in more detail with the career guides at the University of Law, because if you know specifically the jurisdiction that you're looking to practice in, they'll be able to tell you what the route could be if you're looking to do a UK law degree, but then transfer to another jurisdiction. Okay, so thank you, Naomi. No need, excuse me, no need to apologise. Really good to have questions. So wrapping up now. So as I said, those who booked through Eventbrite, we'll be sending you follow-up information, links to our career guides, and links to the University of Law information. Thank you so much again to Jamie and HJ, and have a lovely evening, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Cool.